Hi friends, in this session I am going to show how to dynamically creating the Hazelcast instance and client instance programmatically. All these previous examples we were using the default Hazelcast XML which is present in our Hazelcast library. So now I am going to show how we can programmatically create a Hazelcast instance and client instance. So I am going to create new Spring Starter project. I am going to name it as Hazelcast. First is the server. I am using just the Spring Boot. So this is my Hazelcast server. I need to add Hazelcast dependencies. So I need to add two dependencies. One is Hazelcast, other one is Spring Hazelcast. So group ID is com.hazelcast. Artifact ID is Hazelcast. So for Spring it is Hazelcast-Spring. So I am going to save it. So now I am going to show how I can dynamically create new Hazelcast instance. I am just creating one public static void main class so that I can run independently that class alone to start the member. Hz member. So here I am going to create my programmatic Hazelcast instance. So we need config, Hazelcast config to set the configurations. New config. So this configuration will be having network configurations, member configurations, group, all those things we have to set. So first I am going to set one property to the config.set property. Name is Hazelcast socket client binding .any. Hazelcast dot socket dot client dot bind any. By default it is true. So what it will do, it will use the system local interface to connect to the members. So we are going to make it false, and we want whatever the interface we want to use, we have to specify. So it's false, it's a boolean value, false. So it's expecting string, so let me put it in string. So now I am going to use the configurations. In our default case it was using multicast. So in this programmatic way I am showing with TCP IP. I'll enable TCP IP. So I am going to get my network config. Hazelcast config network config. Config dot get network config. We are able to get the network config. Currently it is empty. So now we are going to set all our properties, like what is the port name, what is the port auto incremented or what, all these things we can specify. Set port. By default it runs in 5701. In case if I want to change also I can change. So here for demo purpose I will change it to 5670. So do you want to automatically increment the port? Whenever a new member added, you want to increment. By default it is true. So if you want to add multiple instances, I can set true, but here I want to use only one member, so I am putting false. So now I have to specify, instead of multicast it has to use the TCP IP, and c dot get join. So from this join I am going to get the join config, how my Hazelcast member has to use what protocol. We have different types of configs are there, like multicast config, which is by default enabled. You have Kubernetes, Eureka, discovery config, or TCP IP. So now I am going to specify disable Hazelcast multicast. So dot set enabled. I am saying by default it is true. This time I am going to use TCP IP, so make it false. Similar way I am going to set TCP IP is enabled. Get TCP IP config dot set enabled. So this is true. I can specify by default this is false, so I am just setting that also. Get AWS config dot set enabled false. Dot set enable false. So we are making sure our it uses TCP IP protocol to connect. Now I have completed this join configurations. I have set the port things. And if I want to set the if I have to add the listeners in my previous demo I have showed, so with this config I can add the member listener, lifecycle listener. If you want to take care of client listener, that things also I can add to the config object. Now I am going to set Hazelcast instance name. What is the name of our Hazelcast? Config dot set instance name. For demo purpose I am putting test member. So my instance name is test member. If we want to make a cluster, we have to use the group. While connecting to the client, you have to give the group name, so that all the client and member all will be into part of particular group. Otherwise all will be connected, so that we can make small groups, and based on our need we can manage. So I am going to set that group name, config dot set group. So first I am going to get my set group config. So group config I can create using new group config with group name. We have two options. With default I can use, or I can directly set the name. If I am using default group name, again using setter I have to set. So here I am directly setting in the constructor itself. I am giving my group name is group 1. So now my Hazelcast I have used join configurations, port, instance name, group name, all those things. Now I am going to create my Hazelcast instance. So to create Hazelcast instance, Hazelcast instance shell Hazelcast dot new Hazelcast. By passing this config object, whatever we have created dynamically, we can pass that config object dot new Hazelcast instance with config. So if I want to print my instance name, I should be able to print hz dot get name is the instance name. So I'm just going to save and run this. This is my Hazelcast member. Run as Java application. So my name was test member, whatever the instance name I have set, this is my Hazelcast name, and I have used 6700 as the port number, so it was started with 6700. If I try to create one more instance, because I have set auto port increment false, it will fail. It will not be able to create one more member. Let me run and show. See, it's saying address already in use because we have already one instance with port 6700. So based on our need, we can enable or disable this. So now I'll show how programmatically we can connect to Hazelcast client. So here itself I'll create that. I'm going to add my client dependency. Hazelcast-client. So save this. So now I'm going to create one HZ client, new class with public static void main. So for Hazelcast it is config, for client it is client config. We have to use client config. Config equal to new client config. Even here I should be able to set my config property. I will just copy here. Hazelcast socket bind any to false. So I am saying use only what are the protocol defined in the Hazelcast, not the local one. So I am going to set my instance name, this client instance name, dot set instance name. I am going to name it as test client. Similarly, I have to use the group which I have created before, the member group name. So config dot set group, so new group config, the name is, I'll just copy from here, group 1, so that it will be connected to the whatever the member we have started. Now I am going to say what is the network configuration, how it has to connect. So here client network config. In case of Hazelcast member it was network config, for client it is client network config, equal to config dot get network config. If in my case here it's only one port, if we want to add multiple ports, I can go with this Spring definition with comma separated. I can give the list of ports, but here for me only one port, but just for demo purpose I'll add some other port numbers also. If you want you can add the range also. So this is my port. What members you want to add, what members the client has to connect. Example, if you have started your member in 4 different IP addresses, I should be saying my client these are my IP addresses to connect. So I need to mention that add address. So here in my case it is only one, so I am going to give that. If you have multiple you can use comma separated, localhost :6700. This is my address, so go and connect to this address. So in case if it is not able to connect, I should be able to specify what is the timeout, how much time it has to try, all those things I have to specify. Set connection timeout. So how much milli time you want to try, how many, I'm just setting some 3600 milliseconds. Similarly, you want to do redo operation, like in case if the client is disconnected, if some job is already started in member, you want to lost it or not, we can set. So by using true I can do that, so set it to true. Similarly, the partition data, if you are looking for some data from IMAP or something, if it is in different partition, we can set this by using smart routing. If you are not setting that, it will do it will use only one one member. Example, if I started 4 members, it always point to one member. One client always point to one member. From that member, it will again go to actual partition and get the data. So it has to make 2 calls. But if you are using smart routing, with one call itself, it will be able to get what is the fastest way to retrieve. It will be able to get the data. So this will be fast. And if you want to provide some retry operation, we can set it. So connection retries. So config dot get connection strategy config dot get connection retry config. So here I should be able to specify how many times I can retry all those things. Dot get connection retry config. This returns connection retry config object. Connection retry config object. Set what is the initial backup of millis. It is 1000 milliseconds. If what is the maximum time you want to try, maybe I'll put 3600. With how many multipliers with jitter, it's like exponentially we can set these values. By default it is multiplier is 2 and jitter is 0.2. So I'm just using those values. If you want to try multiple options, what is the difference between this time from 1000, how many times it want to try, all those things using these values we should be able to set. So I'm setting jitter to 0.2, which is default. It's set not get. So now all my configurations are done. Now I'm going to give this client config to my Hazelcast instance to create Hazelcast client instance. So Hazelcast client. Hazelcast instance is same for client and normal one. So Hazelcast std equal to Hazelcast client dot set dot new Hazelcast client with client config. So we are going to get my Hazelcast instance. So I'm just printing the instance name, get name. If I want to print the UID, I can just get that UID also, my client UID. Get local endpoint dot get UID. Dot get UID. So let's save and start the application. So my instance, it is taken test client. I have not given space, so UID also got joined, and it connected to my member, and this is the client UID. If I give space, we will be able to see. I can start one more time. Because already it is there, it was throwing unable to connect to any cluster. Let me stop my existing one and retry. Successfully connected. This is my member, this is my client, this is the test client, is the client instance name, and this is the UID. So based on our requirements, we can change all these properties. If you want to enable multicast, we can, in the member I can just put multicast is true and remaining false, so that it will start in the multicast mode. But in production normally we will not use multicast. We will be going with either TCP IP or some AWS. If you are deploying in AWS, we can use AWS or Eureka. We have Kubernetes. Based on your production environment, we can use that configs. Thank you friends. Please subscribe to my channel.